Hello, everyone. My name is Gilda Ross. I'm the Glenbard Student and Community Projects Coordinator. I am delighted that you could join us for this very, very special event with Martha Beck, the author of today's book under conversation, Beyond Anxiety, Creativity, Curiosity, and Finding Your Life's Purpose. I personally have been a big fan of Dr. Beck's for a very, very long time, and I couldn't be more excited about having you join us for this important conversation. It is the 30th year of the GPS Parent Series. I don't know if this is your first time or if you've been with us for many of those years, but our ask remains the same. Please share this resource. Everyone is always welcome to these GPS events. No matter where you live, all families are welcome. We're all about bringing renowned speakers to you for positive youth development to help families thrive, which is perfectly in sync with our book today. So let me quickly tell you about upcoming events before we begin. We are going to be welcoming next week as another special event, Bill Cartwright, another favorite of those of us who live in the Chicago area, former Chicago Bull. He has a memoir he's just written called Living Life at the Center. Bill Cartwright will be with us in person at 7 p.m. Glenbard West High School in the library. I hope you can join us for this inspirational evening. Also next week, we're going to welcome for the first time Hunter Clark Fields. Her book is called Raising Good Humans Every Day. I know you'll want to listen to that on Thursday, September 11th at noon and at 7 p.m. Our community read happens the week after that. I know Martha is also a big fan of this book. Susan Cain, the book is called Quiet. She'll be in conversation with Scott Barry Kaufman, who has many important books, among them Ungifted, Wired to Create. That's on the 17th at noon and 7 p.m. And then almost closing out the month is Jessica Leahy about her two important books, The Addiction Inoculation and The Gift of Failure, on September 25th. So much to talk about today, so we're just going to get right into it. You'll be able to enter your thoughts in the chat, not questions. And Martha is going to enlighten us with her wisdom, and I'm delighted you could be here to join us. To do the introductions, I'm so happy. Joining us is Superintendent Doug Icarus. He is the Superintendent of Community Consolidated School District 89 in Glen Ellen. Welcome, Doug.
Great. Thank you, Gilda. I am honored to introduce today's guest. Dr. Martha Beck has spent a lifetime offering powerful and practical teachings that help people improve every aspect of their lives. She holds 3 Harvard degrees in social science, and Oprah Winfrey has called her one of the smartest women I know. For over 2 decades, she has been, in the words of NPR and USA Today, the best-known life coach in America. Her published works include over 150 magazine articles and several self-help books and memoirs, including international bestsellers, Finding Your Own North Star, The Joy Diet, and Expecting Adam. The Way of Integrity, Finding the Path to Your True Self was an instant New York Times bestseller and Oprah's book club selection. Dr. Beck's latest book and the topic of today's presentation is Beyond Anxiety, and we are delighted to welcome her to the GPS community today. With that, I turn it over to Dr. Beck. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. You said not doctor, Mr. Superintendent Icarius.
Yes.
Thank you, Glinda. Sorry, Gilda. You're now Glinda, the good witch of the whichever. Hi, everybody. Just regarding the chat as housekeeping before I start out, I'll be using it as Mr. E has said. I have some social science training, and I like to use the chat on these Zoom calls as a way of sort of measuring what the audience is experiencing. So today we're talking about anxiety, how it's affecting people in the world today, and how you can go beyond it. Anxiety, as it is absolutely skyrocketing. It went up by a full 25% during the pandemic and has not gone down since then. It kept going up. And it disproportionately affects young people. So adolescents, young adults, a lot of the people who are the age of our children are going through some horrific battles with anxiety disorder, not just feeling anxious sometimes, but an actual clinical level of anxiety, which is enough to make your life feel really quite miserable. And I think pretty much everyone is affected by cultural conditions, as well as a natural inclination that humans share to become anxious and remain anxious. It's a, well, I'll talk more about it in a minute. But the first thing I want you to do is relax, sit back, and look inside yourself and notice right now what your level of anxiety might be. With 0 is no anxiety whatsoever. 10 is maximum anxiety, full-on panic attack. Between those two extremes, pick a number that describes your state of anxiety right now and pop it in the chat. So mine might be 2 right now. Thank you. This is exactly how I wanted the chat to go. Oh, quite low numbers compared to most of the audiences I address. This is impressive. Wow. Okay. Now, if you have a child, and I assume most of you do, if you have a child or children, put in a number that represents what you see as your child's or your children's level of anxiety, your most anxious child. So 9, 6, no. Okay, so these numbers are much higher. And that is not surprising, given that you are a group that has come together in community to share, experiences, to share difficulties. And a community connection is one of the most important things you can do to reduce anxiety. So for whatever reason, your anxiety scores are already quite low. Your children's are somewhat higher. And I think anybody listening to this is going to know a young person or young people who have very high anxiety. All right. Now, all of this is just a precursor. I'm going to talk a little bit about the mechanism of anxiety in the brain. And then I'm going to give you some takeaways to address anxiety that you can use on yourself and that you can also very easily export to the young people in your life, even if they're young children, all the way up to adults. All right. So long story short, we live in a society that is focused on one aspect of the way we think. So when you were given tests in school, you were being tested almost exclusively on subjects that had to do with verbal, numerical, or procedural recall and invention. This is because that's exactly what you need to survive in our culture. We have a culture that is unlike, say, the tribal cultures that existed all over the world before we saw the rise in cities when people became agrarian. In those tribal cultures, for hundreds of thousands of years, okay, this is a huge time span. I just read something that said Cleopatra was closer in time to the invention of the iPhone than she was to the building of the Great Pyramids. And that was 5,000 years ago. Imagine hundreds of thousands of years. It is a long time. And during that time, humans were existing and thriving. And what did they experience on a daily basis? Intimate interactions with nature and one another in smallish bands. When the band got to be about 150 people large, they'd split off typically into other bands, because there's something called the Dunbar number, you may know of this, that says people can only hold in their minds a certain number of other people. And it's about 150. And that's why most companies now, if there's 150 people working in one place and then it grows more than that, they tend to have to create subdivisions, because we're used to that band of 150 or less, approximately. So if you were to wake up in any of those hundreds of thousands of years prior to 2 or 3 centuries ago, you would be surrounded by people you knew well. You'd be surrounded by nature in whatever form, a desert, a forest, a beach. You would hear sounds like birds singing, animals moving, human voices, water, wind, and nothing else. And you would go through your day creatively solving problems that had to do with your immediate survival. That is fishing, gardening, foraging, gathering, making baskets. An interesting thing that I observed a long time ago is that when you look at the characteristic occupations of tribal people, of traditional people, they were doing things that we do on vacation. So that recreationally, hunting, fishing, gardening, basket weaving, pottery making, storytelling, all these things that they did on a daily basis as getting their daily food and their needs met. They're things that we do on vacation. Why? Because they're enjoyable. So we evolved to enjoy these things. You don't do any of those things on a daily basis at this point in your life. I would wager, if you are watching this program while sitting in a place far outside any civilization center, and all you can hear is wind, water, birds, and other human voices, I will eat both my shoes. I just don't believe you're there. Instead, you're in an environment that is profoundly alien to the way humans evolved to live. It's full of right angles and hard straight lines. Did you know there are no straight lines in nature aside from like quartz? Everything else is curved. In her book, The Last American Man, Elizabeth Gilbert wrote about this man who lived outside in sort of the ancient way. And he said, everything in your world is boxes. You get up in a box, you get into a box on wheels, you drive to another box, you sit in a box, you look at a box, you work on a box, you take your box back home, you lie down on a box, you look at a box, you fall asleep in a box. It's boxes. My world is circles, he said, the circle of the horizon, the circle of the seasons, the circle of my friends around my campfire. Circles form everywhere in nature, but straight lines, right angles, very, very rare. So even that has an effect on your biology. And when you add things like high stress jobs, the incredible influx of information that is pouring in all the time, filling your mind. I mean, in 1950 or something, like way, way back when I was like not born yet even, they said they found that there was more information in one Sunday edition of the New York Times than there had been in all the written works of humanity in the 14th century. And that's in one, that's what you try to take in over breakfast, right? That was long before the internet revolution. Now you are being like fire hosed with information all the time. And the people fire hosing you are trying to get your attention. This is absolutely key. It used to be in civilized society that knowledge was power. Now attention is power. And all the big corporate entities and all the way down to little individual influencers are trying to get your attention. Well, what gets attention most in a human brain? If you walked into a room that had 15 adorable puppies and one king cobra in it, where would your attention go? It would go to the cobra because your brain evolved to pay very close attention to danger and to fixate on danger. All primates have this tendency they have a special snake alert call. And instead of sending them running for cover, like a monkey group or a baboon group, they will gather and stare at the snake. Because the only thing worse than a snake you can see is a snake you can't see. So we have these brains that are designed to pick up any hint of danger and rivet our attention on it. And this is why, for example, by the time our kids leave for college, they've seen approximately 60,000 televised murders, fictional, most of them, but still murder. Why? It scares us. It gets attention. There are murder mysteries, thousands of them. There are no robbery mysteries. There are no attempted assault mysteries. It's murder. We want to talk about murder. That's what scares us most. the news is always presented in as negative a way as possible to get our attention and keep our attention. People do dramatically dangerous things or show dramatically dangerous events to get attention. And this is continuous from hundreds, thousands, millions of different inputs every single day of our lives. We are in this strange situation. We did not evolve to handle this. Our evolution has had to go from that tribal level to this insane, like scary, weird information box world in just a couple hundred years. That is nothing in evolutionary terms. We have not had time to evolve to accommodate it. So what's happening is that we have brains that are designed to work like any other animals. And the first thing that your brain does in any situation is scan for anything unnerving or worrisome or even new, something you've never seen before. And it will send out from a very primitive part of the brain a sort of alarm signal. It doesn't have any language to it because this part of the brain called the amygdala, actually the amygdalae, there are two of them side by side, but they're right at the center of the brain, these little almond-shaped regions of the brain, and we share them with pretty much every other creature out there. Everything that has a brain has an amygdala or something much like it, and it just makes us afraid. Then it sends our attention to the thing that we're afraid of. In most animals, they'd look at the cobra, they'd be like, oh, and they would stare at the cobra, and then if the cobra went away or they got away from the cobra, they would relax, out of sight, out of mind. Humans don't do that. In our brains, and so far as we know, only in our brains, that initial pulse of fear from the amygdala goes to a part of the brain that can use language. And other animals don't have this to the same degree. We have it to such a degree that we can tell ourselves stories that justify the impulse of fear we've just experienced. And we tell a story, like we see someone unfamiliar, they're wearing clothes that look strange to us. Okay, well, I'm immediately afraid of that person. And a thought may come up like, he's not one of my people, or he must have some kind of weird, cultural thing going on. I don't trust that guy. That's what the brain tends to do with that fear impulse. It justifies it. And what happens then is that the story kicks back into the fear impulse and escalates it. So, you say this, you see somebody that looks strange and different and you think they're scary and you tell yourself a scary story. So what happens? You get more nervous about that person. Now you're acting nervous. Now the other person is also hair triggered to pick up danger. And one of the most dangerous things for human beings is other people who don't like us. So that person is feeling signals of your dislike and starts to bristle and defend. Then those signals are taken in by your amygdala as signs that that person is aggressive. So you get aggressive, so he gets aggressive, and then it just escalates. And this is called an anxiety spiral. And the crazy thing about it is it always goes up. It never goes down unless you actively challenge the negative thoughts that are coming in. Okay, that man's wearing different clothes than I am. He seems dangerous. Am I certain that's true? If you can go to that step, you might be able to bring your anxiety down. But we're not really inclined to do that. And we live in a culture where people polarize and argue, and they get very aggressive online. I mean, this phenomenon that our kids are dealing with of online bullying is just hellacious. It causes incredible anxiety. So this is a situation in which we find ourselves. We're all subjected to constant triggers for anxiety, and we are not given the very situations that would regulate our nervous system, like nature, quiet, like time with nothing happening. They don't have that. Time outside of the boxes. We don't really have that. And then you throw in things like a pandemic, and anxiety just keeps going up and up and up and up all over the world. So knowing that and thinking about your children and about them going forward, you know, I found when my older kids were teenagers, when I made, when I, excuse me, I'm getting, sorry. I think my own child just knocked on the door, and I think you can identify with that. We just moved into a new house. So what was I saying? Okay, these kids, my older kids, were doing something called apocalypse planning before I even knew that they were worried. They even knew the word apocalypse. There were 12-year-olds and they were planning for the end of the world. They were terrified and joking about it, but terrified. And honestly, when I look at the news and I look at the media and all that, it's hard to fault them on that. So how do you feel about your children's potential and your children's future? If you think about their future and check your own anxiety, where would it be on a scale from 0 to 10? And this is why we're here. These are some high numbers, 9, 10. Yeah, it's really scary. So you're looking at what's happening to your child. Your child is getting anxious, and that can manifest. It goes into a fight or flight scenario in the brain. So either you want to run or you want to fight. Sometimes you want to faint. There's something when you're really scared called a dorsal collapse, where your nervous system just gives up. And if you've ever heard really bad news, like on 9/11, I remember feeling this way, just collapse. I couldn't move, right? So at these high levels of stress, you're feeling anxious about your kid. That communicates as either aggression or a desire to escape or a potential flop. For that to be happening to your parent, if you're a child, even if you're a pretty, later adolescence, to see that happening to your parents is terrifying. And we're able to pick up such subtle differences in energy from one another, much more than we really give ourselves credit for. We can pick up other people's energy in the drop of a hat from across the room. So your kids are getting this signal. They're getting anxious about your anxiety. Then they're displaying more anxiety, which could be that they fight, they get aggressive and angry. They flee, disappear into their rooms, won't even look at you, won't give you more than a grunt. They flaunt, won't go to school, won't do the things that they need to do to get ahead in our society, which is collapsing. And it creates an anxiety spiral between us and our kids. And so it gets worse and worse and worse. And I've been in that spiral with my kids, believe me. So what do we do? Here's where we start to have some takeaways. What in the brain will allow us to get out of an anxiety spiral? I read hundreds of studies, books, papers showing that anxiety goes in a spiral. I also read simultaneously a lot of material showing that anxiety kills creativity. And I mean, it really kills it. For example, if you have people answering a question that requires a creative leap of imagination, and they're having a good time at it, they're cracking the puzzle, everything's fine. And then you offer to pay them $10 if they get it right. They fall apart. Their creativity deserts them. Not because you threatened them, but because you told them you'd pay them, and now they're anxious about needing to make that $10, right? This is how subtle it is. Lots of studies on how creativity dies when anxiety comes up. But I'd been doing research on creativity earlier, about 5 years earlier, and I'd seen similar data, but I'd never seen anything showing that creativity could overcome anxiety. What I had seen was that anxiety localizes itself on the left hemisphere of the brain, where creativity accesses the right side of the brain primarily. And yes, the whole brain is working all the time. Nobody's either left brain or right brain, but the logical verbal functions and the anxiety spiral live in the left hemisphere. On the right side of the brain, the right hemisphere, lie creativity, but also a sense of meaning and purpose and joy and connection and sensory details, basically the things that make life worth living. A great neurologist and philosopher from Oxford, Ian McGilchrist, has written that we as a modern society function like someone who has had a stroke to the right hemisphere, just took it out. Sense of meaning is very low, sense of joy, enjoyment, creativity, delight, just imagination, very limited for people who are always caught up in an anxiogenic is the word, a situation that creates anxiety. So we are functioning like a person who has a right hemisphere stroke. Well, what's that like? If somebody has a right hemisphere stroke, it's really interesting. They can only think analytically, but they see no point in doing anything, can't really make decisions. And here's the most interesting thing about the left hemisphere. It believes it's absolutely right. No matter what its stories are, it believes them absolutely. And that's part of what makes the anxiety spiral so tenacious. The right hemisphere is not so sure. So there are societies, primarily Asian. My undergraduate degree was in Asian studies. So I read a lot of Asian philosophy and realized that the height of sort of achievement, if you will, in those societies, the height of wisdom is something called don't know mind. And it basically just says, I'm not absolutely certain of anything. I could be dreaming right now. So if you look at, it's really interesting because Westerners have thought the same thing, but then the anxiogenic society has edited out the bits about not knowing. So for example, you know, the statement, I think, therefore I am, right? By Rene Descartes, great philosopher, one of the foundation stones of our philosophy today. He said, I think, therefore I am, cogito ergo sum. But that's not all he said. He didn't say, I think, therefore I am. He said, I have no idea what's going on. I have a fever. I'm having vivid dreams. All of this could be a hallucination. I doubt everything. But the one thing I'm sure of is that I'm in doubt. So what it really said was dubito cogito ergo sum. I doubt. I know I'm thinking because I don't know what to think. So I must exist. So the foundation of his philosophy was that he did not know. There's a great Indian sage called Nisargadatta Maharaj who says, the only true statement the mind can make is, I do not know. And if you think about it, you know, we could all be having a fever dream. So when you get to the place where you can accept that you don't know everything, a couple of things happen. The first thing is the left hemisphere loses its stranglehold on your being because it can say something like, everything's horrible and it's all bad and terrible things are happening and there is no hope. And the right hemisphere will say, well, you sound really worried, but 90% of the things I worry about never happen. So I guess worrying works. You know, that's a favorite statement from Roy Rogers that none of the things that he worried about ever happened. So worrying must work. Or what Mark Twain said, I am an old man and have known many troubles, but almost none of them ever happened. So we're thinking in these anxious ways. And when we realize even my most terrifying certainties may be in error, I don't know for sure, there's a humility that comes in that is not characteristic in our culture. And when you're in that state of humility, you start to listen, you start to watch, you start to observe from a place of compassion, which is characteristic of the whole brain. Right and left hemispheres working together. So you're getting all the information, but you're not as sure that you know what it means. So how do you get into the right hemisphere when everything you've been educated to do, everything you've been socialized to do, and all the things you're being triggered by every day are in the main, pushing you into anxiety spirals, especially when you're parenting. How do you help your child who's out there terrified and comparatively unarmed because they're so young, right? They're in a scary world and they have less weaponry than an adult, right? So how do you help them? How do you get out of it? Well, the first thing you can do is know that human nervous systems are highly attuned to each other. We have mirror neurons in our brains, which actually rearrange themselves in real time to match what's going on with other people that are with us. So researchers found this in Italy. They had wired up monkeys with electrodes in their brains, and they took time for lunch. And as one man ate a banana, they saw that the monkeys were experiencing the same brain state as if they were eating the banana. And so they started to realize that there are these certain cells that mirror each other. If you take 3 people and put them in a room and wire up put electrodes on their heads and over their hearts, and they don't talk to each other at all, 3 strangers, within about 20 minutes, the brain waves and heart rhythms of all 3 people will be conforming to the calmest person in the room. The calmest person in the room. If you ever interact with a herd of horses, there will be one horse who decides things for the group. The matriarch is usually a mare, and it will be the calmest mare in the herd. Calm is an incredibly powerful survival skill, resource for all animals, including us. But our culture kicks us out of it, which is very unnatural for us. And it's why it results in all kinds of health effects. It's horrible for us. Okay, so be the calmest person in the room. That's the very first rule that I would give to any parent or any person, but especially to parents. Be the calmest person in the room. Do it for your kids. How? Not by saying, if I came in and said to you, look, I really need you to calm down. Your child's life depends on it. I want you to calm down right now. Would that make you calmer? No. And yet so many approaches to anxiety in our culture about make it happen, is calm down, stop it. Just make yourself be calm. Serenity now, they used to shout in Seinfeld reruns, doesn't work. But there are lots of ways you can just trick your brain into waking up the right hemisphere. So let's do one right now. I call this sense drenching. You're going to take all your thinking, which is often in an anxiogenic place, and we're going to focus it on sensory experiences. So the first thing I want you to do is to put in the chat something you love to smell. Just a word or two, something you love to smell. Lemons, lilacs, chocolate. And then I want you to read the chat. Citrus, fresh bread, cookies, fresh basil, and actually let your brain imagine the fragrance of each thing. Some people can't see the chat, but I'm saying the words: lavender, roses, magnolia, coffee, fresh baked bread, lots of yummy things. So I want you to just let yourself imagine those smells really vividly. And if you're listening to this later, whatever smells you particularly like. Okay, now throw in something you love to hear. Just a word or two. Let's see what comes up. Music, giggles, baby laughter, ocean waves, marching band, I love you, babies' voices, birds chirping, cicadas, laughter, trees rustling. Let yourself imagine hearing all those sounds, all of them at once. Just throw them all in together and then add to them the fragrances of the things you just smelled, okay? Now, 3 things you love to touch with your skin. Oh, no, not 3 things, 1 thing. In the book, I ask you to put down 3 things. My dog, hugs from the children, velvet, my husband's soft feet, cool, fresh sheets, kittens, soft blankets, a smooth table, delicious. Imagine those textures on your skin. Yeah. And bring in the thing you love to hear and the thing you love to smell. And then tell me something you love to taste that is not necessarily something you just listed under smell. Chocolate, Indian spices, hazelnut, dark chocolate, donuts, raspberries, Chardonnay, my mom's lasagna. Okay, so now put those into the picture. I want you to imagine all these things at once, bubble gum. And then finally, put in something you love to see. People are thinking sunrise, my children, sunset, the ocean, blue sky, flowers, a painting I love, smiling children, the beach, elephants. Oh, an elephant. Now, what I'm doing, and I'd encourage you to do this too, is just if you're here right now, you can scroll back and forth on the chat and just see these words: donuts, kittens, dark chocolate, baby's laughter, music, magnolia, and just let each of those things arise as an image. And if you're not able to see the chat and you can't grab what I'm saying as it flies past, just make a list of one thing you love with every one of your 5 senses, and imagine being in a situation where all of those things are present at once, and really vividly hold all 5 things. Now, when you're doing that, check and see what's your anxiety level and put it in the chat from 0 to 10. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1. So even lower than when you first came in for most of you. Looks like pretty strong majority are lower even than you were when you were first here. So I call this sense drenching, and you can drop into it at any moment that you feel tense. It is counterintuitive. Your child comes in, they've had a terrible day, maybe they're being cyberbullied, and the anxiety goes off like a siren in your head. And you want to run around and fix everything. And that anxiety feeds back into your child and escalates your child's anxiety. So for your child's sake, go to a place where you have a little space. The bathroom is perfect. Say, I need a nature break. Go in there, and then you're going to start calming your amygdala, that little part of your brain that goes, ah. And the way you do that, there are a couple of things. The first one, everyone knows this: deep breaths. Deep breaths in with long breaths out. Like purse your lips and almost blow, almost whistle, so that you have to tighten your diaphragm to push the air out. This is a sigh of relief, and it's the way the brain resets when it has been anxious. When you think about it, there is no one, no animal, no human running from a predator who ever does this. That doesn't happen until the predator is gone. And it's a reset for the brain. It breaks out of the anxiety spiral. And then go to sense drenching. Think of a scenario where all the things you love to sense are present, and make it like a little imaginary vacation spot in your mind. Put little pictures of it on a little tiny card and remind yourself of all these things, and be careful to imagine that they're actually happening. The right hemisphere does not track time, only the left hemisphere does. So for the right hemisphere, it's whatever is present. So imagine presence of all the things you love to sense, and your brain has to activate the right side. Now, from this place, you can access something that in one branch of therapy, internal family systems therapy, which was based on family systems, the creator of internal family systems therapy says that we each have a core self with a capital S. And it has all these C values: compassion, confidence, calm, clarity, curiosity, courage, connectedness. All these words that begin with C are just listed in IFS literature. And I found when I started reading about it that just reading through those words, calm, clear, compassionate, confident, curious, courageous, connected, creative, just reading through them started to regulate my nervous system. And then before you're still in the bathroom, you did the deep sigh of relief, go to your sense drenching place. This is why you have to prepare it beforehand. Then it becomes a wired circuit in your brain that you can reliably travel into a place of relative calm. And then notice that those characteristics, creativity, curiosity, compassion, connectedness, these are the things that we all want to experience coming to us from other people when we are anxious. So by giving yourself this connection to the right side of your brain, you're going to bring your own anxiety down. And then, as a gift to your child, as a gift to yourself, as an act of deep responsibility and love, you walk back into the room calm as you can get. Keep up the deep breathing. It will help to keep you there. Keep up the sensory presence of what is right here and now and what you imagine loving to sense. Keep up the memory of the words courageous, compassionate, clear, confident, just like breathing comes first. And then here's what you need to know. Every person on earth, there are all these therapies where people talk about behavioral conditioning or cognitive alterations or re-imprinting that will help people's anxiety come down. But actually, we don't need any special training. Every single person ever born knows how to calm down a small, frightened animal. So if you opened your door tomorrow morning and on the stoop was a wretched, shivering, dirty, adorable little kitten or puppy, and you decided you were going to try to help it, all of you, male, female, old, young, doesn't matter. Everybody in every culture, everywhere in the world knows what to do. You drop your voice in pitch and in speed and in volume. You slow your physical movement. You get down to the level physically of the animal. You say soothing things to it or make soothing noises. And you wish it well, you wish it well, you wish it well, but you never make any sudden moves. And you definitely don't get angry, excitable, loud. You know that would scare the creature away. Well, guess what we are? We are small, frightened animals. And the way we calm each other down is by treating each other as if we were dealing with terrified kittens. And you know who I learned this from? I learned this from a book by a man named Chris Voss, who was not an anxiety expert. He was the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI for several years. He writes about dealing with psychotic terrorist madmen who have guns and are waiting to use them and are highly, highly anxious. And he would go into these situations, and you know what he'd do? Drop the pitch and volume and speed of his voice. Say reassuring things to people who are hysterical. And ask them how they saw the world. It sounds like you're feeling really upset and you want $10 million and a helicopter. Tell me where I'm wrong about that. Sounds like you really, really want us to take away the police presence. Say more about that. Like he would train people to do this, and they'd say, "This is madness. We're in some violent situation." He was the lead negotiator for a reason. Human amygdala calmed down in a context of that kind of behavior, to the point that he, in one test case that I cite in the book, terrorist had taken an American man hostage in the Philippines, and this man had murdered many, many people. And Chris Voss trained the negotiators there to use this calm, gentle, reflective approach. And what happened was the terrorists sort of lost focus, and the hostage escaped and was rescued. And the terrorist called the hostage negotiator and said, I don't know what magic you were using, but I basically just let him go. And I was planning to hurt him. I don't know. You deserve a raise, whatever it was you did. So I love that this is applicable in very extreme situations. It's really hard when someone is in a state of high anxiety to speak softly, slowly, reassuringly, and to empathize with them, or at least be really willing to listen. So I developed a script, so which is one of the takeaways I wanted to give you. Breathing is one, sense drenching is one. And then this is another one. And the softness of the voice. Imagine yourself with a puppy or a kitten. When I go into a room where, say, I've got a client or a family member who's highly anxious, hysterical even. I mean, a lot of people are hysterical these days, and sometimes they come to me at a state of really high anxiety. I've even had people get very aggressive toward me. They start they start yelling at me because I'm not doing enough, for example, to save a group of people that they identify with. So I get cyber attacked, right? It's hard face to face with that energy to not mirror it, to not let your own anxiety spiral get triggered. But if you can keep the breathing deep and keep the voice slow and low, even if you are feeling a little anxious inside, this is the script. You say, wow, it sounds like you're really having some like a rough time. Tell me everything. Tell me everything. Tell me how it is for you. And then you listen. And when they say something like, you never listen to me, you reflect it. So I don't ever listen to you. And you'll want to fight back so hard. And it will work better if you say, that might be true. I don't know. Tell me more. I used this technique. I was teaching a seminar, and a mother and child had come, mother and daughter, and they were in a really difficult relationship with each other. And they did a lot of great work in the seminar, but then they went back to their room, and apparently the daughter really had a good go at the mother, like attacked on all fronts. You were not a good enough parent. You didn't do it right. And the mother came back to the next session in tears. And I was able to take her aside and teach her this script. Sounds like you're having a rough time. Tell me everything. Okay, I'm listening. I don't disagree. And then the final part of the script is, I think anyone who'd been through what you've been through, from your perspective, would be feeling exactly what you're feeling. Because that's true. If you had gone through exactly what another person had gone through, you'd pretty much be feeling what they're feeling. And children know that with a kind of fidelity to the truth that adults, I think, often lose. And this mother was like, I do not want to do this. I deserve to have my day in court. And I'm like, do you want to win, or do you want to have a loving relationship with your child? Like, I know you're going to have to eat your ego to do this. It's a great exercise for destroying your ego, which is how we awaken in Asian philosophy. So just give it a try, because the fact is, you do want to know your child, and you aren't sure that they're wrong. And yes, if you were going through exactly what they're going through, you'd probably feel a similar way. So lower your voice, keep your breathing really deep and slow, long exhales, and just try it. She came back the next day and pulled me aside, just shining, and said, it worked, it worked, it worked. And I mean, that's one of my happiest moments as a coach. But if you can do this, if you can do this for your children, I will be that much happier, because this explodes that locked in anxiety dynamic, and it creates connection between self with a capital S and self with a capital S. And two people are now connecting who are clear and calm and confident and compassionate and creative and courageous. It is like magic. So those are my gifts to you. understand the anxiety cycle, spiral, know how to let out a long breath, know how to go to your senses instead of your verbal mind, your stories, know the script and how to calm a small animal. If you put those all together and master them as a kind of parenting skill, I'm telling you, oh, this has done miracles for me and my children. And I've heard similar things from other parents. So I'm really grateful for the chance to speak to you. I'd like you to just pop in once more your anxiety number, and then I'll take some questions.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So helpful. I'm going to relate to you what I heard. Okay.
Great.
I heard you spend some time on the biology, which was you did it in a beautiful way, simple terms that we could follow along, all of us, those that aren't neuroscientists. You let us know why we all feel similarly in this world now. I loved your thought about understanding, grasping that we don't know everything. Reminded me of someone who recently said, give people the benefit of the doubt as a mantra, because we don't know everything. And then you talked about the core self, about what are those C words to go to, so that you can be in that place where you can be there for others, where you can be the calmest person in the world with your breath, with your thinking, with your strength, sense, stretching. So we're not in that anxiety cycle. I love the script. That might be true. I don't know. I'm not sure. Tell me everything. Anyone who's been through this might feel exactly the same. So we're there so they can dump, and then we reflect and we have the compassion and we listen. And the bottom line is that it's not about the win. It's about building that loving relationship with your child as the primary, as the goal, as our mission, our responsibility. How did I do?
That is the real win. You did great. The one thing I would alter is you don't say to somebody, anyone who'd gone through what you've been going through might feel what you're feeling. It's much more helpful if you say anybody who'd gone through this would be feeling what you're feeling. It's so validating. And here I'm just gonna pop those 8 words into
Beautiful.
chat.
Calmness,
IFS,
curiosity, compassion,
calmness,
connect.
curiosity, compassion, confidence, connectedness, courage, clarity, and creativity.
You're reminding me the word but after a compliment.
Don't
Don't go there.
condition it. Don't condition it. There are very few things that the mind can say for sure, but I do not know is one of them. So, I think I don't know,
Mhm.
but I suspect that anyone who's been through what you've gone through would feel what you're feeling. Yeah.
Doug, I know you have a comment.
Yeah, just a couple things. Well, first, thank you, Dr. Beck. But I appreciated what you said too about you mentioned there's fight, flight, and flop. Because I've noticed that sometimes that almost like paralysis. I'm glad you had another word that kind of fit in there with that. So I appreciate that. And I loved last year, we have student board members. And we're a K-8 district. And last year, a big theme that they came up when they surveyed our students was just about anxiousness and anxiety. And so they asked us to create a video last year that could help students, whether it's before a test or before going into lunchroom. And I love the one you shared about senses. I think that would be a great one for us to add. And so I just really appreciate, having additional strategies to share. I think in schools, we see a lot of anxiousness, both with adults and the students. So just thank you
Thank you for that.
for that. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I have a son with Down syndrome, and then I have 3 daughters whose IQs are off the charts, and it works for all of them.
Wonderful. The question for you, Dr. Beck. So we know what we're supposed to do. We get caught up. We make mistakes. What do you think the biggest mistake parents make when they heard this? Now they're going there. What do they do wrong?
The biggest way to go wrong is to think that going wrong is a problem. and to get more anxious about it.
Mhm.
Because as I'm sure you guys discuss all the time, the thing that builds strong relationships is the process of rupture and repair. Relationships like bones heal strongest at the broken places. So if you have had like that wonderful client who tried the script in the seminar, because they'd had so much conflict, she and her daughter, when they broke through and connected over this topic, I've seen them since, and they are so bonded. They have been through the fire together. So don't think that if you forget to do everything perfectly, you're making an irrevocable mistake. We all make mistakes, and that is an opportunity to repair. And you can use the same script to repair after a rupture. Also, just in light of what Mr. E was saying, there's another F too. There's fight, flight, flop, or fawn. We're social animals, and fawning on people, like groveling to them and doing whatever they say, is one of the ways we try to keep ourselves safe from aggressive humans. And when a parent or a teacher does that with a child, the results can be disastrous. We're trying to be loving and giving, but in fact, what we're doing is we're giving them a really unstable position from which to interact with us. So don't fawn on your children. Listen to them. That's really important. So thank you for bringing that to mind, Mr. E.
You talk about the anxiety quilt. Can you talk briefly about that? The quilt, what that means to you?
Actually, it's not an anxiety quilt. This comes later on. This is after you've learned the skills of quieting your anxiety. I talk about finding things in your life that bring you joy and centering them in your attention. So instead of all the stuff that's grabbing at our attention that says danger, danger, doom, apocalypse, you start focusing on the things you know about, all the bad stuff, but you're going to focus on things like acts of kindness and love and artistry and joy as just where your mind is most of the time. And I was going to say you make a crazy quilt. There's no pattern. If you make quilts, you know this. A crazy quilt is where you just take pretty fabric and you just sew it together without any particular pattern. And I thought, if you make your life out of things that you love, if you fill your mind with things that you absolutely adore, that stimulate your creativity and keep you out of anxiety, it's like making a crazy quilt. And then I thought, no, it's not crazy. It's sane. So I called it a sanity quilt. Your life, if it's chosen from a place of calm, compassionate, curious, connected, clarity, it's going to bring you into sanity in a culture that is insane with anxiety.
You know, we've heard over and over about how important it is to get our own anxiety in check, but I think you put the dots together that if we really want to benefit our children's anxiety, then we better get our own anxiety in place. So now you're in an elevator and you've got a parent and you just see everything going wrong. And you don't, it's a long elevator ride, but it is still an elevator ride. What do you want to say to that parent right there, if you could?
The anxious parent,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, repeat after me. You're okay. We've got this. You've got this. You know you can do this. You've got a good heart. You've got a good imagination. You just constant, I call it kind internal self-talk. And it's part of that strategy that we'd use with a puppy or a kitten. The words don't matter, because literally that part of the brain is nonverbal and it reacts to soft, soothing sounds. So that's it. I would breathe deeply and I would say things like, you've got this, you can handle this. Look, everything's fine right now. You know, this is okay. We'll be fine in the next few seconds in the elevator. Okay. Bring people's attention back into the present and just say, you're okay now. You're okay right now.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I have a sense that if you did a chat again, you'd find out a lot of zeros for anxiety on a scale of 1 to 10. This is a great book. Find it at your bookstore, find it in the library. And if you can come to the Glenbard District Office and you can pick up a copy, let us know in an email to myself, Gilda_Ross@glenbard.org, because we can't wait to give these away as well. Martha, thank you so much. You told us you're working on another book, and you let me know when that book is ready too.
Thank you
Okay?
so much. It's Gilda, Doug, if I may call you by first name, that like, this is the work that saves the world, one
Absolutely.
child at a time.
He
You're
who
doing-
saves one life saves the world entire. No wonder I love you so much. Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.